Something feels off about the current Philadelphia Eagles roster construction, and we need to have a real conversation about it before the season begins. Reports indicate the front office is actively evaluating trade candidates, specifically targeting Jalen Carter, Tanner McKee, Fred Johnson, Kelly Ringo, and Ty Robinson as potential departures. It is alarming to see this level of volatility regarding core pieces and depth players so close to kickoff. This matters because it signals a massive shift in how the organization values long-term stability versus immediate roster flexibility. And honestly, the more details come out, the harder it is to ignore what is going on behind the scenes. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop your name and city in the comments below. Let's get into it. The Philadelphia Eagles are heading into a summer of roster volatility, with the official November 10th trade deadline setting a ticking clock for potential front office shakeups. While not a singular transaction, the organization is currently evaluating the trade value of 5 prominent players: Jalen Carter, Tanner McKee, Fred Johnson, Kelly Ringo, and Ty Robinson. Carter remains the centerpiece of this discussion as fans anxiously await a long-term contract extension. Yet the possibility of a stalemate between his representation and the team has created a sense of unease. Since arriving in Philadelphia, Carter has become a cornerstone of our defensive front, earning his status as a fan favorite through sheer dominance on the field. The truth is, we simply cannot afford to lose a talent of his caliber, especially after the lingering frustration surrounding A.J. Brown's departure earlier this year. The uncertainty regarding his deal, paired with the team's willingness to move veterans like Fred Johnson or backup quarterbacks like McKee, suggests a front office that is proactively looking to reshape its depth chart. Seeing players like Ringo or Robinson potentially on the block strikes a nerve because it signifies a shifting philosophy on how we value special teams and developmental prospects. For those of us who have followed this team for decades, these mid-season maneuvering strategies are never easy to stomach. It leaves us questioning the internal stability of our roster and wondering whether Nick Sirianni is truly aligned with the front office on these personnel decisions. If the coaching staff is already favoring guys like Andy Dalton or Markel Bell over our established young talent, we have to wonder what is happening behind closed doors at the NovaCare complex. How will this potential roster exodus fundamentally change the chemistry and leadership in the locker room once the season kicks into high gear? The most surprising development this summer is the sudden possibility of parting ways with Kelly Ringo, a player once considered a cornerstone of our secondary's future. We find ourselves in this precarious spot because Ringo's elite special teams ability has masked a lack of defensive snap growth, leading to a crowded cornerback room where he is now being outplayed by Jacorian Bennett. With his rookie contract expiring, the front office is likely weighing whether his value as a premier gunner warrants a roster spot over a younger, developing defensive back who offers more versatility in the scheme designed by Nick Sirianni. Historically, we have seen this organization flip talented but non-essential pieces for draft capital to fuel future runs, and I cannot stress this enough. The decision to potentially move him stems from a desire to optimize roster depth rather than any lack of talent on his part. If we look back at the trade of John Mechie III last October, it becomes clear that this front office prioritizes roster efficiency over sentimentality when a player no longer fits the immediate rotation. Coaching staff meetings are likely focused on the reality that players like Ringo are highly coveted by teams craving immediate special teams impact, making him a prime asset to acquire mid-round picks. While he has shown flashes of potential, the business side of the game remains cold and calculated, especially when veterans are pushing for those final roster spots. We have seen this cycle before, where promising talent becomes expendable simply because our defensive tackle depth is so profound that keeping everyone is a luxury we cannot afford. The coaching staff is clearly calculating the long-term benefit of flipping a replaceable role player for a pick that could bolster our depth in the trenches next season. This roster situation represents a pivotal turning point for the franchise, because how we manage these specific assets directly dictates whether we remain a championship contender or face a period of rebuilding. Let's be real, the decision to potentially move on from players like Tanner McKee or Kelly Ringo is about balancing short-term depth against long-term financial flexibility. By shipping out expendable talent before the trade deadline in November, the Eagles can secure mid-round draft capital that keeps our pipeline of young, affordable talent stocked for the future. This shift ripples across the depth chart immediately, creating opportunities for developmental players like Markel Bell to prove their worth on the active roster. We must consider how these trades affect our schedule, especially when we face tough division rivals like John Harbaugh's Giants or Dan Quinn's Commanders. Having a solidified veteran-heavy roster is critical when we enter those high-stakes divisional clashes that determine who takes the NFC East crown. If we can leverage our surplus at defensive tackle or quarterback to address weaknesses elsewhere, our path to the playoffs becomes significantly clearer. Trading depth now ensures that when the winter weather hits and injuries inevitably mount, our second unit is comprised of players who actually fit the scheme rather than just taking up space. This strategic approach to roster management is how we maintain our status as a league powerhouse rather than letting our talent pool stagnate. We have seen how quickly fortunes change in this league, and by being proactive, we put ourselves in the best possible position to sustain this run of success. The front office knows that every move made during these summer months is a brick in the foundation for a deep postseason run, ensuring that when December football arrives, this team is built to endure the pressure of a title hunt. The potential trade of Ty Robinson represents a fascinating case study in modern roster management for our Philadelphia Eagles. The strongest argument for moving Robinson is the sheer depth of our defensive tackle room, which provides us with significant leverage to acquire a draft pick from a team desperate for young interior talent. By trading him, we capitalize on his upside while allowing Byron Young or Moro Oyomo to secure more consistent reps under Nick Sirianni. Here's what people are missing, however, which is the undeniable risk of parting ways with such a high-ceiling athlete before he has reached his full potential. If Robinson blossoms in another system, we might look back with deep regret as he becomes a cornerstone player for a rival franchise. League scouts and media analysts are currently buzzing about this situation, noting that several teams across the NFL are actively monitoring our defensive line rotation in hopes of landing a bargain. Many front offices believe Robinson possesses the raw physical traits to develop into a starter, suggesting that Philadelphia might be selling too low on a player who is still finding his professional footing. My honest take here is that while keeping depth is essential for a deep postseason run, the Eagles should only execute this trade if they receive a compensation package that helps solidify our secondary. I firmly believe we must remain disciplined, keeping Robinson unless a team comes forward with an offer that is simply too valuable to turn down. We have enough talent to win in 2026, so our front office should prioritize long-term team flexibility over immediate roster comfort. It is a delicate balance, but one we must navigate carefully if we intend to remain the most feared team in the NFC this winter. These roster maneuvers reflect a front office that remains committed to long-term stability rather than just chasing immediate gratification. By evaluating the value of players like Jalen Carter and Tanner McKee, the organization is positioning itself to remain competitive throughout the next few seasons, regardless of potential contract impasses or depth chart shifts. As fans, we should feel optimistic about this strategic discipline because it demonstrates a clear vision that values roster flexibility and proactive asset management above all else. And I'll be straight with you, this level of clinical decision-making is exactly what separates championship-caliber franchises from the rest of the league. While saying goodbye to familiar faces is never easy, the focus remains entirely on maintaining a high standard of play in Philadelphia. We are building a foundation that emphasizes growth, accountability, and the necessary churn that keeps a team hungry during the long grind of an NFL season. It is a mature approach that mirrors the wisdom of our dedicated fan base, trusting that every calculated move is designed to ensure we are standing tall when the playoffs finally arrive. Seeing depth players traded for draft capital creates a pipeline of talent that keeps our championship window wide open for the foreseeable future. With these potential moves looming, I have to ask you, which of these 5 players do you believe is most likely to be traded before the final deadline passes in November? Your perspective helps us shape the conversation as we look toward a successful year ahead. If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Fly, Eagles, fly. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for sticking around until the very end of this breakdown, because your continued support truly fuels every single analysis we produce for the team.